To acquire the essential items for performing home invasions. This alone should inform you about my philosophy on detective work.
Yeah, if there is no work, it has to happen somehow. Okay, so have you ever seen a detective without work? I thought not. I know I haven't. I wonder how they always have work. I think these videos exist to remind me I'm not as masochistic as I could be. So here I am. Reggie's death wish will never be granted, at least not in the way he wants. Today he's roaming the streets as a detective, solving cases, helping people, while also suffering from mild schizophrenia and hallucinations because there's a snail trying to kill him. So before we spiral into snail-induced chaos, make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and let's get into it.
In this town, everyone's running from something. A dead-end job that crushes their soul 8 hours at a time. A broken relationship that screams louder than it listens. Or even an addiction to drinking perfume just to feel alive. But me, I'm trying to escape something much different. I'm trying to escape an army of killer snails. Because today, we're playing Shadows of Doubt, a procedurally generated detective game about solving crimes. But for each in-game minute that passes, an invincible snail will spawn onto the map and begin hunting us. If it touches us, we die. And in case you're wondering, a minute of in-game time is about 5 or 6 seconds. Meaning that after an hour, we could have 600 homicidal snails stalking us through the streets. They cannot be bargained with. They feel no pain.
I would have made it minutes. I would have made it minutes because I know how fast the seconds go by. Time, it goes by very quickly in this game. It's a fun game, but time is definitely an illusion, and we're all in a simulation. So why would you want them to spawn every 5 seconds? What? Why would you? Why? I would have made sure to make it an IRL minute. I don't know why my model's being weird. Forgive me.
Snails stalking us through the streets. They cannot be bargained with. They feel no pity, no remorse, no fear, and above all else, they absolutely will not stop until we are dead. Our only way to escape this nightmarish reality is to become a productive member of the Chinese Communist Party. Because by solving crimes, we can increase our social credit to level 5, at which point we will have the option to retire and leave this cursed city once and for all. So, can we escape the snail apocalypse, or will we fall victim to ungodly horrors beyond our comprehension? There's only one way to know. But first, I have to tell you something. 5 years ago, I was in my basement apartment attempting to teach my wife how to get sturdy, when suddenly she turned to ash before my very eyes. After collecting her remains in a dustpan, I went to the hospital so the doctors could determine the cause of this horrific disaster. Following several hours of analysis, the physician looked me straight in the eyes and said, this lady done got turned to dust because she had a deficiency of 3D real-time strategy role-playing games with built-in factory automation systems. God damn it. If only she knew about the sponsor of today's video, Arknights Enfield. This is a brand new RPG featuring dynamic team-based combat, cinematic storytelling, and several breathtaking environments to explore, ranging from the futuristic Valley 4 to the oriental town of Wuling. But let's get straight to the good stuff. 3 words: automated industrial complex. In this game, you can establish a power grid, extract resources, manage your logistics, and develop complex production pipelines to manufacture helpful equipment and technology for your missions. I'm not going to lie, I love automation games. In fact, every time I hear the word efficiency, I slam my hands up and down on my desk over and over while making monkey noises. This is purely an involuntary reaction. Point is, Arknights Enfield makes my brain go... and I like that very much.
That's
this
a real
game
reaction.
features a wide variety of characters, and personally, my favorite is Da Pan, because one of his main techniques is beating people into unconsciousness with a gigantic Chinese frying pan. Objectively, the best character. Now listen, Arc Knight's Enfield is free to play on PS5, PC, and mobile, and I implore you to use the link in the description to download the game today. Please, do it before it's too late. Thank you, Arc Knight's Enfield. Now, back to the video. Before we begin, I'm going to explain the structure of this challenge. The Snail Apocalypse is divided into 3 distinct phases. The spawning phase, the empowering phase, and finally, the kaiju phase. To move from one phase to another, we have to solve a murder.
I feel like he had the idea late at night while he was reading certain things. And then those certain things kind of spiraled out of his control. And it just devolved into, well, what if snails? And then what if snails but strong? And then what if snails but monster snails? This is a late night idea. This isn't like middle of the day. You just had your gamer subs, just could sit and and you're like, you know what? I think I want to mod the game to where snails is gonna kill me and progressively get bigger and stronger. I don't think that's a normal daily train of thought, but this is Reggie. I digress.
Finally, the kaiju phase. To move from one phase to another, we have to solve a murder. And specifically, we have to solve the murder as fast as possible because each of these phases are time sensitive. Given that, this won't be your typical slow-paced crime-solving video.
You have to be very quick with it.
I will be sprinting everywhere, I will be taking massive leaps of logic, evidence will be fabricated, innocent people are going to die, and I just might do a little heroin while I'm at it. With that out of the way, let us begin. We load into the city, midnight, January 3rd. Our first snail nemesis is already upon us. For the time being, we can easily ignore him. But that peace of mind won't last for long. In order to escape, we'll need to solve 3 murders. But unfortunately, no one's dead yet. So I decide to spend some time preparing. Our first order of business is to acquire the essential items for performing home invasions. This alone should inform you about my philosophy on detective work.
Yeah, if there is no work, it has to happen somehow. Okay, so have you ever seen a detective without work? I thought not. I know I haven't. I wonder how they always have work.
This alone should inform you about my philosophy on detective work. Regrettably, that used up all of our money, but as the saying goes, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to perform brutal home invasions and you feed him for a lifetime. So I began searching the nearby apartment complex for easy targets to make some cash. After finding one, I break in, knock the first tenant out with a tea kettle, and shatter his wife's legs with a fire extinguisher. Consider this a valuable lesson on the dangers of leaving a spare key under your doormat. I spent about 20 minutes ransacking the apartment for a total of $200 before escaping out the bedroom window. By this point, there's around 25 snails sliming their way through the streets. Not a huge issue, but definitely noticeable. Fortunately, our spree of wanton violence appears to have manifested the death of an innocent man. Because a murder case was just reported on the radio. The sooner we solve this, the sooner we can exit the spawning phase. So we head straight for the crime scene at PineappleFrenzy. Arriving there, I can see the security shutters have been drawn. No access.
Yes,
so I slip into a ventilation.
You would think, this is like one of my small pet peeves with the game. It's a very small pet peeve because I have the game. You're a detective. Why are you not allowed access to the crime scene and therefore treated like a criminal when trying to access said crime scene? The math never mathed in my head. Why? And it bothers me. it bothers me. I'll try to keep my complaints to a minimum, but that is my one little ick. Just a little ick. Because like the game knows you're there to be a detective. Why not treat you that way? I don't know.
See, the security shutters have been drawn. No access. So I slip into a ventilation shaft and begin worming my way toward the crime scene. Eventually dropping down into some kind of storage closet where we hide until the police leave. Now, it's time to get to work. First priority, avoid being shot to death by ceiling-mounted machine guns. After disabling the security systems, we're free to explore the area. It doesn't take long to find the victim. One Paulo Baltazar, an employee here, shot dead with a hunting rifle between 7:45 and 9 p.m. last night. Upon closer inspection, we find a bullet impact point and also a hole in the nearby window. Based on this, we're likely dealing with a sniper. These can be difficult because they leave very little evidence at the scene of the crime. However, by approximating the bullet trajectory, we can deduce that the shooter must have been firing from across the street in Hodge Projects on either the 6th or 7th floor. So it's time to go pay them a visit. This is easier said than done, because by the time we decide to leave, there are at least 40 snails creeping up the staircase toward us, with dozens more entering the building each minute.
Oh my god, it's just the slowness of the snails with the knowledge that they are insta-death is terrifying. Because, like, one snail, sure, that's fine. 2 snails, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to hit my microphone. 2 snails, that's okay. 40 snails, suddenly things are moving fast, and it's your heart. It's your heart. Your heart's going a lot faster. It's pumping. Be careful. Don't have palpitations.
Snails creeping up the staircase toward us, with dozens more entering the building each minute. So we take the elevator down to floor 1 and dive headfirst into a dumpster full of scrap metal. That might seem like an unnecessarily painful shortcut, but jumping out of windows is something we're going to have to become well acquainted with as the Snail Armageddon intensifies. Arriving at Hodge Projects, I begin surveying the 6th floor for evidence. That sounds professional. In reality, it was a lot closer to a crystal meth addict pillaging apartments for drug money. In fact, the first unit I tried to break into caused me to accidentally phase through the wall into their bathroom, which upset the tenants greatly, and resulted in me spending 5 minutes getting beat by lesbians in the shower. Eventually, the melee spilled.
Don't just say that and casually, like, leave it at that. Wait, you wanted this to happen. There's no way you didn't want that to happen. And we're not just going to ignore that either. I'm not. I heard you. I acknowledge you. You know what? And I'll bet you there's someone out there that's jealous too. Not me though. But I'm taking notes.
Spending 5 minutes getting beat by lesbians in the shower. Eventually, the melee spilled into the kitchen, where one of them tried to stab me, missed, and stabbed their partner instead. At this point, it's a free-for-all, until I smash a peanut jar over one of their heads to end the bloodshed once and for all. Unfortunately, after searching their apartment, the only crime I found evidence of was an abusive relationship. So I uncuffed them and moved on to the next unit. This is where things became very interesting. Arriving at apartment 601, I kicked the door in, knocking out the first tenant before running inside and using the kitchen door to knock out her husband. Truly, some of my finest detective work. After that, it didn't take long to find the evidence we were looking for. A hunting rifle in the bathroom, clearly in the middle of washing the fingerprints off it. But we got here too fast, and the prints match up to the wife, Leah Christensen. This is a very strong start, but if we get this case wrong, the challenge is over. So we have to be 100% sure. Searching the apartment, we find no bullet casings, but there are some highly suspicious discoveries. A note to Leah's mother describing picking up some extra work on the side, perhaps as a paid assassin. An email about pest control services, possibly a coded message. And as we're exploring, she receives a phone call that hangs up immediately once we answer it. Potentially a client checking to confirm the hit was completed. Most of this is what we could call circumstantial evidence. Things which do not directly prove her guilt, but which, with the application of reason, could imply it. It's all very frustrating, so I make sure to knock her out a few times for inconveniencing us. I want to investigate further, but the snails have reached the 6th floor, and if we wait much longer, they'll have us cornered, at which point, I don't like our odds of jumping out the window. So instead, we head down to the 1st floor and gracefully make our exit.
I love seeing the frame jump every time he goes down a level and pans over these snails. This is a great idea. Because without them, I wouldn't be experiencing this amount of joy. My cheeks hurt.
Window. So instead, we head down to the first floor and gracefully make our exit. It's now time to investigate the victim. Infiltrating her apartment was comparatively easy, since, she's dead. And after doing some investigating, we discover that our victim was being stalked by an average height female. This fits the description of our suspect perfectly. The note says she was being followed yesterday at a fast food restaurant called Glutton Grub. So all we need to do now is go there, show a photo of our suspect to the staff, and if they can identify her, that will establish a solid link between our victim and the suspect, at which point we'll turn in the case. The only problem is the United Snail Army has assembled outside of Glutton Grub, and they formed a blockade to prevent our entry. So our only way to gain access was to violently hurl a garbage can through the restaurant window. Unfortunately, this angered the staff, and we had to spend 15 minutes hiding in a nearby park as the general manager tried to kill us with a framing hammer. After he cooled off, we climbed through the window and began asking around about the suspect. But to my dismay, no one saw her in this restaurant at that time, which goes against our stalking theory. Additionally, by this point, we're dealing with about 250 snails, which presents us with three major problems. First, our risk of touching a snail and dying has become fairly high. Now, technically, that wouldn't end the run, but in practice, it might, because by the time we wake up at the hospital, the snails could be waiting for us, effectively soft-locking our run as they spawn camp us over and over again. Second issue, our frame rate is being absolutely demolished by the sheer volume of calculations required to monitor this many snails. And the last issue is that over time, the snails are slowly coagulating into one giant death ball. Theoretically, this is good, because it's easier to deal with one big snail rather than 200 small ones. However, the death ball appears to be exerting some kind of domain expansion upon its surroundings. Because if we get too close to it, our screen gets all pixelated, and sometimes it blinds us completely.
He's like, I don't know how this happens, but, I'm assuming it's because of that. Points to the stack of 250 snails. I don't know why it's happening, but here's why it probably is. Reggie, you did this to yourself. I was sort of maybe under the impression that just possibly this mod would be small enough to not, ruin your frames like that. But I've come to the very quick realization and acceptance that I was wrong. Because I figured, the invincible snail's pretty lightweight, but, taking into account that all of them are tracking you, nope. You're ruined. Goodbye, PC. I don't know what part of it.
Close to it, our screen gets all pixelated, and sometimes it blinds us completely. Even light itself cannot escape the event horizon of the Gestalt Snail, which is incredibly disorienting. Needless to say, we need to solve this case before these problems get any worse. Desperate times call for desperate measures, so I'm going to execute the quintessential detective maneuver when faced with limited evidence. I'm going to bluff my ass off.
Okay.
Returning to the suspect's apartment, we find she escaped her handcuffs. So I grab a dumbbell and knock her out while she's brushing her teeth. Now it's time to confront her directly and accuse her of murder. 90% of the time, when you do this to the actual murderer, they'll confess. However, when we confronted Leia, she responded with an incredulous and dismissive, "Yeah, right." What do you mean, "Yeah, right"? We've got the gun. You're gonna fry for this. I'm not gonna lie, the confidence with which she delivered that line shook me to my very core. Could we have the wrong person? Confirmation bias is defined as the psychological tendency to search for, interpret, or favor information in a way that aligns with one's pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses. A note to Leia's mother describing picking up some extra work on the side. An email about pest control services. Phone call that hangs up immediately once we answer it. Dear God, I think we've subjected an innocent woman to several hours of interrogation and having all of her teeth knocked out simply because I don't know how to do trigonometry and she picked a bad time to practice firearm maintenance. I believe we've got the wrong person. So I got to work investigating the other apartments, which is when I came across Unit 701. At first glance, it's nothing out of the ordinary, but the more I looked, the weirder it got. For example, a human skull in the master bedroom, a receipt for a hunting rifle time-stamped 1 hour before the murder, a noise complaint regarding several popping sounds, some vaguely schizophrenic notes, and lastly, a list of potential victims, which disturbingly enough appears to include us. The final piece of evidence came when we found a receipt for glutton grub.
Do they actually actively hunt the player down? What? It includes the player? Oh. Oh, that is a wild setup. Holy crap. I feel so bad for the lady we thought it was. Because, huh? Oh. We were very wrong.
To include us. The final piece of evidence came when we found a receipt for Glutton Grub, the place where our victim was being stalked. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we found our killer. Or should I say, our killer found us. Because while I was snooping on her computer, her husband came home and attacked us with a box cutter. Eventually, we were able to knock him out with an office chair. And 5 minutes after that, she showed up as well. For posterity, the office chair box cutter matchup is about even. However, the office chair hunting rifle matchup is absolute dog shit. It was only by sheer luck that we managed to subdue her, at which point we got the murder weapon and she admitted everything. In case you're wondering about the motive, I'm about 99% sure she's just an unmedicated paranoid schizophrenic. This is terrific, but less terrific is the fact that the Snails have us completely trapped in the apartment. I try getting around them, but with each passing second, more are converging on our position, and it's starting to blind us. I frantically check the windows for potential escape routes, but on the 7th floor, it's not looking good. At this point, I believe all hope is lost, until I spot it.
There's vents! Yeah, oh, I paused too late. Anyway, yeah, there's vents. He's going to be traveling via vent.
It's not looking good. At this point, I believe all hope is lost, until I spot it. A ventilation shaft in the kitchen closet. I climb in and we begin making our escape. The time is 6:30, which implies about 400 snails are coming to kill us. Luckily for them, they won't have to try very hard, because we tanked about 4 hunting rifle shots to the chest, and we're quickly turning this ventilation shaft into a slip and slide. In desperation, we make our exit into the kitchen of a downstairs apartment. Imagine, if you will, it's 7 a.m., you're in your kitchen making a nice breakfast before heading to work, when suddenly a blood-soaked maniac falls through your ceiling and begins frantically darting around the room, screaming about killer snails. In that situation, if you're doing anything less than killing him with a frying pan, you have miscalculated your response. So I can hardly feel upset when that's exactly what this guy did to us.
Good. That's the proper
We're unconscious.
Response.
This is very bad. Fortunately, the hospital is on the other end of town. Therefore, by the time we wake up an hour later, the snails are infiltrating the building, but they haven't yet made it up to our room. So we jump out of bed, launch a fire extinguisher through the window, and finalize our escape. Doubling back to City Hall, we grab a murder resolution form and submit it as the snails close in from every angle. After a few minutes of processing, the results come back, and we've officially solved our first murder, thereby exiting the spawning phase of the challenge with a total of 500 snails on the map. This earns us enough good boy points to reach social credit level 2. Not bad at all. With that taken care of, we've probably got about 12 to 18 hours until the next murder occurs. So what do we do now? Well, in order to reach level 5 and retire, we need 2,000 social credit. Solving 3 murder cases will get us to about 1,500, which means we need to make up the last 500 by doing community service. This could be anything ranging from finding a lost item to melting off a woman's face with a cup of coffee, and everything in between. So let's get to work. After perusing...
Why? I forgot that public humiliation was in that list of odd jobs that you can do, but why? Just why not, like, soda? Sure, coffee stands suck, but soda is sticky. And the stains also suck, depending on which one you want. Why coffee? Don't Don't throw coffee at anyone. Don't do that. That's messed up. I'm convinced that this entire town is full of psychopaths and schizophrenics. It's been a long time since I last played it. I think I might play it today just for a refresher. But I'm being gently reminded it's full of wackos and doodles.
With a cup of coffee and everything in between. So let's get to work. After perusing the job listings, I come across one well suited to our talents. Demolition for reliable individual. I call the number and the guy tells me he wants us to trash his friend's apartment as a prank. Looking through my inventory full of handcuffs, pepper ball grenades, and loaded guns, I assure him this will be very funny. He gives us some basic intel on our target, but most importantly, their name starts with the letter A, and they live on basement level 1 of Lovelace View. So that's our first stop. Sneaking into the building's security office, we use a code breaker to force entry into the computer and access the resident database. After a quick search, we come back with 2 people living in the basement who fit the description. But one of them is on basement level 2, so we ignore him and focus instead on Aleel Hawkins. Heading down to his apartment, I get to work. Aleel is not home, but his boyfriend is. So the first master stroke of this prank is going to be blinding his lover with a flashbang and then locking him in the bathroom. Now when Aleel comes home, not only will he find his apartment completely ruined, but his gay lover will be having a panic attack while handcuffed to the toilet bowl. This is the essence of modern pranks. Our goal is to cause $700 worth of damages, but there's one major problem. This place is a fucking dump, and I don't think there's even $700 worth of things in here. On top of that, we're quickly getting boxed in by the Snails, so I decide it's time to leave and spend a few hours eating fried chicken and chain-smoking cigarettes on the other side of town. This gave us enough time to formulate a plan on how to properly destroy this man's apartment. First, we grab a garbage bag from a nearby alley and take it to his apartment. Then we begin throwing it around like a battered wife, coating the entire apartment with garbage juice and random detritus. Living room walls, ruined. Bathroom shower, full of dirty needles. And gay boyfriend covered in garbage oil. This is a good start, but we need to go even further. I punch a hole through his shower and start bleeding profusely. Then I go roll around in his bed, covering the sheets in my blood, before producing 3 pounds of raw beef, which I throw at the walls and then eat. This gets me exceptionally nauseous, and I fill his toilet bowl.
What did you do? What did he cut off of himself? Did he like... He just manifested three pounds of beef? Okay. I'm concerned about where the 3 pounds came from. I think that's gonna bother me for a bit.
Throw at the walls and then eat. This gets me exceptionally nauseous, and I fill his toilet bowl full of vomit. For my final move, I take his grandfather's urn full of ashes and smash it against the ceiling. I exercise the upper limits of Roth-maxing, but to my dismay, it says we still haven't done enough damage, which is when I realized something truly embarrassing. When I was determining our target, I ruled this guy out because he lived on basement floor 2 instead of basement floor 1. But it turns out there is no basement floor 2. These are apartment numbers, and we've got the wrong guy. In a just world, I would be sent to a labor camp and my family would be shot for what I've just done. But in the dystopian world of Shadows of Doubt, no one really cares. In fact, our social credit hasn't even budged. So it's up to us to make this right and restore our karmic equilibrium. I decided the best way to achieve that was to entomb the gay guy in a pile of cardboard boxes, turn the lights off, and leave. That seemed about even Steven to me. Heading over to the correct apartment, we quickly make a $700 mess and then turn the case in for 250 social credit. Another job well done. This leaves us just enough time to get one more job done before the next murder happens. Based on our exemplary performance on the last mission, I decided to accept a contract for corporate espionage. Our target is the head of HR, and our client was caught jerking off in the photocopier at work. So he needs us to track down the target and make those HR reports disappear.
You know, that's not the first time I've heard someone claim that story. So, I I feel like it's wrong to ask, but I'm going to ask. And I'm so sorry that I'm going to ask, but I have to ask. Is it true? Is this an actual problem? Because why have I heard of specifically there being problems with the photocopier at work more than once? I believe that there's a little bit of truth in everything. I try to believe that. Where it can be applied. So I have to know. Either there's an origin point somewhere, or that origin point is a real thing that happened. I need to know. I need to know so that I can just have that knowledge and then probably forget about it and randomly remember it in about 10 years.
Work. So he needs us to track down the target and make those HR reports disappear. At this point, all we know about our target is his phone number, but that's more than enough.
Yeah.
First, we have to break into an apartment complex with absolutely dogshit security, and I know just the spot. Arriving at Lovelace View, we break into the first apartment we find and use their phone to call the target. No one answers, but that doesn't matter. Now, we slip into the basement and find a telephone router. In most apartments, these are protected by laser tripwire systems and automated gun turrets. However, in this dump, it's being guarded by a AA battery and an eraser, so we have no problem breaking it open and accessing the call logs. Using this, we track the call we just made and determine it went to Unit 402. I waste no time kicking the door off its hinges and pilfering the apartment in search of the HR documents. Unfortunately, they're not here, but we've got the next best thing, our target's name and his place of work. So it's time to go pay him a visit. Arriving at Zhang Terrace and Associates, I find a receptionist who, despite typing frantically, is clearly not doing anything. So I offer him $30 for a guest pass to the office. Following that, we wait until everyone goes on lunch break and start searching for the documents. After 5 minutes of looking, we find the files, stuff them down our underwear, and make our escape.
I like this game a lot. I know I've said it before because I've done a video before reacting to this game before. Not this specific video, though. I don't know, man. I like how weird it is, but it's believable. Everything just makes sense and doesn't make sense, and you're forced to be creative, and I like it. So I can't recommend it enough, because genuinely, if you're like me and you like things to happen when you want them to happen, maybe it's not the best for you. Like if I sneak into a place at 5 in the morning, I should probably accept the fact that police response is probably gonna be pretty up there, because there's either absolutely nothing going on at 5 in the morning, or there's all the things going on at 5 in the morning. Or, you know, if I break into a place at 10 in the morning and lunch is in 2 hours, why not wait for lunch? There's so many different ways you can handle the same situation. It's kind of cool to see how other people handle things. That's a lot of repetitiveness. I hope that made sense.
After 5 minutes of looking, we find the files, stuff them down our underwear, and make our escape. Then, per instruction, we leave them in a dead drop for our client and let him know the job is done. This puts us very close to social credit level 4. 2 more murder cases, and we're out of here. We've still got 10 hours to kill until the next case. If we were a normal person, we could just fall asleep in a dumpster to pass the time. But if we stand still for even 5 minutes, we're going to find ourselves at the epicenter of the world's largest snail orgy. And maybe that appeals to you, poor, sick man. But that is not my idea of a fun time. Therefore, we spent the entire night on the run. And since we can't stay still, I had no opportunities to use the washroom. So, canonically speaking, for the past 9 hours, we've been sloshing around in a stew of our own excrement. This is how you get a bad reputation with the ladies, because they could never understand the necessity of shit-maxing. It's 8:47 p.m. them. I haven't slept in days,
will.
and I'm subsisting on a diet of street food and caffeine suppositories. Heading down Arquette Street, I see a commotion outside, which upon further inspection is the scene of a murder. Phase 2 has begun. For this phase, we will be cutting the number of snails in half, but for each hour that passes, we will double their size and speed, which means that within 4 hours, we could be getting chased through the streets by minivan-sized mollusks. The first doubling event happens in 1 hour at 9:55, so we've got to solve this fast. In between dodging snails, I'm able to use my powers of deduction to logically infer that our victim is dead. Specifically, her brain is in like 55 pieces on the side of the road. Now, I've attacked people with a vast and exciting array of objects before, but you don't get this kind of carnage unless you're using a high-powered rifle. However, I can't find any shell casings, and no one in the area saw anything suspicious. I was ready to leave the crime scene until, partially obscured by the victim's exploded brain, I found a bullet impact point on the ground. The only way the bullet could land here is if the killer fired from an elevated position, and based on the direction of the blood spatter, that shot either came from this rooftop or possibly the apartment complex behind it. Heading to the roof, I find the door was left open. This is unusual. Proceeding through, we follow a trail of size 5 women's footprints all the way to this ledge where we find
That's really small feet. I'm sorry. I know that's not the focus right now, but those are really small feet. I don't have size 5 feet, and my feet I consider small. That's really, really small. That's like a child's foot. They have to be young. They have to be young. Unless they're a really small old lady or a really, 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 really skinny little lady, they have to be younger. Because there's no way. I don't think I've met a single adult woman with a size 5 foot. Have you? Have you? I haven't. I'm like a 7.5.
The roof, I find the door was left open. This is unusual. Proceeding through, we follow a trail of size 5 women's footprints all the way to this ledge where we find a single shell casing. And that's not even the best part. It's got a fingerprint. You fucking amateur. We've got all this information by 9:30. A very strong start. From here, we undertake the arduous task of breaking into random people's homes until we find a black market weapons dealer. Because chances are, that's how our killer got their gun. By 9:50, we found one. Scarlet Crafts and Hardware. Usually, they won't let you in unless you know the password. But my password is disabling your security systems while you're taking a shit, and then knocking you out with a beer bottle when you're done. With that one simple trick, we were able to gain access to their sales ledger, at which point we found someone with the initials AB purchased a rifle 1 hour before the murder. Much like a porn-sick gooner reading a Zootopia fanfic, I'm getting so close. Unfortunately, it's now 9:55, which means the snails get their stats doubled. They're still fairly slow, but they're now the size of dogs, which makes them a lot more obstructive in close quarters. Sprinting through the streets, we head straight for City Hall, and after scrubbing through the entire phone book, I come back with only 2 people that have the initials AB, Aretha Banks and Amrit Biro, at which point we slip into an empty office and use a code breaker to gain access to the government database. The snails are closing in on our position, so we work fast. By searching each person in the database, we can print off their ID. Then, using my Kaizen V Plus cybernetic upgrade, I'm able to determine the exact size and flavor of each woman's feet just by looking at a photo of them. This is not a fetish.
It's literally VTuber Feet Fan. I'm not... There's nothing else in my mind currently. There's a Twitter account, VTuber Feet Fan. They're hilarious, but I still don't get how they're always alerted to the feet. They're there. If there's feet, they're there. How? Why? Looks. Yep. I know what you are. You're a size 5. That's a wonky skill to have. That's a really, really wonky skill. You should go to the shoe business.
Flavor of each woman's feet just by looking at a photo of them. This is not a fetish. It's purely professional. Point
Or
is,
not.
only Amrit Biro has a shoe size that matches what we found at the crime scene. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've got our suspect. At this point, we could probably turn in the case. Her prints match, her shoes match, and she bought a rifle 1 hour before. But I feel a morbid curiosity. I need to know why she did it. So we're heading to her apartment at 1301 Hodge Projects to establish a motive. Arriving there, I make myself at home pulverizing her husband's brain and detaining him before knocking her out with an office chair. As I'm searching the apartment, we hit 10:55 p.m. And again, the snails double in size. They're currently climbing up the stairwell like a rising tide of violence. But we're on the 13th floor, so they can go fuck themselves. While investigating, we find out our perp is a member of the police force. We've got ourselves a killer cop. Further evidence indicates she's been stalking our victim, so I just come out and confront her. When asked why she murdered that woman, she explains quite calmly, because I could. At this point, I'm sweating bullets. I stutter, I stammer. What do you mean? To which she clarifies, someone had to deal with all the lowlifes in this city. Holy shit, our suspect is cool as hell. I'm in shambles. The virgin detective stands no chance against the Machiavellian vigilante. But enough of that. It's time to finish this case. By 11:50, we hop on the elevator and sail it right through the eye of the snail tornado. By the time we hit the streets, the snails have doubled yet again. Each one of them is now the size and speed of a small elephant on a tricycle. Several of them are also scaling the sides of buildings. This city is overrun. We're forced to take a series of shortcuts and elaborate maneuvers to work our way through the bulk of the swarm. Eventually arriving at City Hall, we grab a case resolution form. But not far behind us marches a dim and endless congress of murderous intent.
That is a
I rush onto the elevator to
line. I've never seen a snail conga before. And I'm assuming this applies to literally everyone currently, so we're now witnessing snail conga. This is a thing. This is real in this game currently. Yep. Snail conga. You're welcome.
marches a dim and endless congress of murderous intent. I rush onto the elevator to make some distance between us, but the snails are now phasing through the building. Desperately breaking into an office, we fire extinguisher the window before jumping onto a ventilation shaft and making our escape. We fill out the last of the paperwork while the snails chase us through the streets. Crime, assassination, motive, vigilantism, sentence, death by bureaucracy. Murder solved, social credit gained. Phase 2 is now over. Now we can indulge ourselves in the exquisite delicacy that is waiting 12 hours for someone else to die. This is its own unique form of purgatory, because there's only so many times you can do laps around the city before you start feeling like an NPC. In fact, I stopped fighting it, and now I'm full-on role-playing. Every morning, I wake up on a park bench before heading down to my favorite food truck for some coffee. I do not know why, but whenever I order coffee, the guy closes the shutters for 20 seconds, does something to my cup, and then opens them back up. I'm going to be candid. I like my coffee how I like my women, without another man's dick in it. And while I can't prove that Joey the food truck man is burning his cock off every morning just to prank me,
Do you like cream in your coffee, by any chance? Just saying. It's probably that. Just saying. If you like cream, heavy cream.
Joey the food truck man is burning his cock off every morning just to prank me, I do have my suspicions. After getting caffeinated, I spend the afternoon stealing from local businesses and spying on people through their windows, before eventually collapsing in a pile of garbage. Honestly, when you spend your days like that, 12 hours flies by in no time. Which brings us to 4 p.m. January 4th. We're walking through the streets when suddenly another murder is reported, this time on Sasaki Boulevard. The kaiju phase has begun. For this phase, we're going to consolidate all of our medium snails into one single mega snail. 10 times the size, 5 times the speed.
That's not good.
16 times the detail.
And in case you're wondering, yes, the hitbox is accurate. We are now dealing with a skyscraper-sized snail. We make our way to the crime scene and begin investigating. A man was stabbed to death in broad daylight with a box cutter and surrounded by some kind of runic symbols. I do my best to put on a brave face, but deep in the fearful recesses of my heart, I know that he's out there, and he's coming for us. You see, the most stressful thing about being pursued by a 200-foot-tall snail is not knowing where it is, because at this size, the pathing is highly unpredictable, and I've noticed the snail has a tendency to fly straight into the air and then rapidly descend upon us like a Stuka dive bomber.
I love this snail. It's the biggest snail that you can never see until it's too late. I love him. Can we name him Jerry? I like him. I like Jerry.
Into the air and then rapidly descend upon us like a Stuka dive bomber. It's honestly very anxiety-inducing. Regardless, we do pick up one crucial piece of evidence just before Mega Snail comes around the corner. Quickly escaping, I open up the note to find it's an anagram. This is the killer's name, but with all of the letters rearranged. So if we can solve it, we'll pretty much have this case taken care of. However, there's one thing to address. Kaiju Snail is cool as hell. However, after playing with it for 20 minutes, I have realized it is not meant for this world. In fact, it pretty much can't navigate the map at all without flying through the sky or spending 30 minutes getting stuck in an apartment building. Point is, it's actually way too easy for us to avoid him. And I think you, the viewer, deserves more. So we're going to reduce his size from 300 to 100. This will allow him to navigate the streets more effectively. Furthermore, we'll also buff his move speed from 5 to 6, making him actually faster than us. So if we're not constantly parkouring our asses off, he will catch and kill us. Fortunately, I have developed the ultimate form of parkour, throwing myself off a 19-story building. Please, have some faith. With the snail hot on our heels, we run into the nearest apartment building and jump on the elevator just in time to escape him. All the way at the top floor, we lockpick the door with the underside of our boot to gain access to the apartment, at which point we open up a window. Then we wait. And as soon as the snail works his way up the staircase, we take the express elevator down to ground level. What would normally result in us turning into a fresh coat of sidewalk paint is now a perfectly harmless experience. Because thanks to our Vigor Stability Sync disc, we no longer take fall damage. So by plummeting to the ground at 85 miles per hour, we have managed to create a sizable distance between us and the snail. In testing, I found it takes him about 50 seconds to go up and down the staircase, which means we just have to solve this murder 50 seconds at a time. The key is unscrambling this name puzzle. Now
That's going to be the longest 50 seconds of your life because you're going to do it a lot. That's a lot of 50 seconds. I don't think I would be able to solve the anagram at that point. Nope. Definitely not. You're best off going in a skyscraper at one edge of the town, right? And then spending your 50 seconds beelining it while trying to figure it out in your head. Going up another scraper, solving it in there while waiting for him, and then going back down, and it's just like going back and forth and back and forth. Because then at least you're, well, in a consistent state of avoidance. Because I can't imagine, like, going up an entire, like 9 floors, jumping off, blah, 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 and just standing right outside the same building that you jumped off of, not doing anything, staring at a piece of paper. I don't know. I don't know which one would appeal to me more.
50 seconds at a time. The key is unscrambling this name puzzle. Now, you may be able to look at this letter jumble and divine some kind of arcane knowledge from it, but I cannot. In fact, it may as well be in Cantonese. So we're doing this the hard way. Our suspect's name has 9 letters. Heading to City Hall, we crack open the phone book and begin the painful process of counting the letters in everyone's name in the entire city of 300 people. Then, if the length matches up, we rule out anyone who doesn't have key letters like J, K, A, and W.
No.
I won't lie, this is a pretty brute force method, and I can only get through like 10 names at a time before the snail shows up and we have to practice our cannonball. Fortunately, across the street, there's a huge apartment building, and we formed a very nice routine of reading 10 or 12 names, going to the top floor apartment, jumping out the window, and then reading more names. This might seem not so bad, maybe even a little convenient, but I want to remind you, just because our legs aren't exploding like tempered glass doesn't mean this isn't taking a toll on our body. Logically speaking, the repeated abrupt and rapid deceleration of our brain should be giving us what the medical community would describe as a shitload of brain damage. Every time we do this, we're getting about 1 car crash worth of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and after about a dozen times, I'm quite certain we should be a vegetable. Now, when you hear that, it may be tempting to feel bad for me, but don't. Instead, feel bad for the guy that lived in that apartment, who almost certainly is going to end up in a mental asylum, because he has witnessed me jump to my death at least 100 times within a 5-hour period. And yet, I always return, like some kind of pudding-brained revenant of self-destruction. Sometimes I beat him up. Sometimes I steal his shit. Sometimes he never even knows I was there until he checks the security tapes. But every time, I'm going out that window. Eventually, our perseverance pays off, and the phone book yields one match, Jay Whitaker. Their address is listed publicly, so it's time to go see how firmly their door is attached to its hinges. As it turns out, not very. We begin examining the apartment, and I'm going to save you the trouble, but just know that I had to jump out the window like 20 times in the process.
Just beware.
This yielded a few interesting things. Our suspect is Jaslyn Whitaker, and after reading her emails, I can see that she is horribly addicted to starch cola. In fact, she's consuming 32 cans a day.
Oh my
God. In case you're unfamiliar, starch cola is basically Coca-Cola before they took away the cocaine. Based on several notes we find, this binge...
She's just an actual addict in more ways than one. Oh, dear God. You have a case for yourself. That explains the symbol and the stabbing. Yeah. Other people would have just gotten a gun, but no. She got a box cutter, stabbed him in the middle of the day, and then drew a demon circle. Because why not? Look at her handwriting. It screams psychopath. I have been chosen. You have been chosen for the institution. You're being institutionalized, sweetheart.
Coca-Cola before they took away the cocaine. Based on several notes we find, this binge drinking seems to have induced some kind of psychosis, whereby our suspect believes that if they kill enough people, they can resurrect the long-dead CEO of a carbonated drink company. Lastly, comparing the handwriting to the note left at the crime scene, we can see it's a perfect match. Now it's time to arrest this sicko and retire from this nightmare city.
Just retire.
According to her work contract, she's a pharmacist. So let's head down to the drugstore and fill a prescription for violent street justice. There she is, planning her next murder. I saw no reason to complicate this, so I just went behind the counter and cuffed her. Fair warning, people do not like when you arrest their pharmacist. So we had to spend a few minutes avoiding an angry mob. But after that calmed down, we confronted Jaslyn, at which point she admitted to being involved in a starch cola cult dedicated to taking over the world. And unfortunately for her, she is not nearly hot enough for us to ignore that level of deranged psychosis. So it's time to book her. We grab the paperwork and fill it out while free-falling from the nearest skyscraper. A few minutes pass, and the case comes back solved. With that, we've reached social credit level 5, which means it's time for us to retire and leave this city once and for all. Barely avoiding our snail stalker, we rush into City Hall and grab a retirement form. To my surprise, this included a last will and testament, and I was in a rush, so I decided to donate all of my worldly possessions to the dead guy from our second case. Then I fill in gibberish and profanity for the last part before handing the papers in. And just like that, the curious case of the...
He wrote it all off to me. It's in my name now. Sorry, not sorry. I didn't inherit much. I I didn't inherit anything, just a snail.
For the last part before handing the papers in. And just like that, the curious case of the snail apocalypse is closed.
Yep.
We're officially retired and waiting for a shuttle to take us to a paradise known as the Fields, where I am almost certain we will be euthanized and our body will be processed into Soylent to feed the proletariat. Truly,
that is exactly
retirement
what it is.
has never felt so good. Thank you to this month's patrons for supporting the channel, and finally, thank you for watching.
I can't imagine being chased by a 200-foot tall snail and nobody else can see it. I think I would admit myself. Thank you for tuning in to another Neko Reacts. So, have you done a similar challenge? Have you dabbled in any sort of mods for Shadows of Doubt? Let me know in the comments below. Until then, please leave a like and subscribe to the universe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.